So if you've played Duel Links before, chances are you've come across this shady looking dude trying to sell you a bunch of virtual cardboard. And as most of you are aware, 99% of his inventory is complete and utter garbage. To be fair though, it's not exactly like the currency needed to obtain the trash is all that hard to come by. One day Konami will give me an actual use for my 12 million gold. But amongst the trash there is plenty of hidden gems, and that's exactly what this video is going to be about. I'm going to be showing you guys my 3 favourite free-to-play card trader cards that can be used as substitutes for meta-relevant staples. Now before I get into it, there's a couple of things to note. Firstly, all the cards on this list I'm going to be showcasing today are going to be generic, so usable across multiple decks, not just one specific archetype. So for example, the card trader offers cards like Magician's Rod, which is obviously an amazing card, but it's only usable in Dark Magician, which isn't really the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video is to show you guys a bunch of free-to-play options you can use when creating your decks for those of you that don't own some of the more well-known expensive staples. So replacements for ultra rare back row or removal, that kind of thing. Which kind of leads me on to my next point. This video is mostly aimed at newer players. The cards showcased here are obviously not going to be the best and are all definitely much weaker than their meta-relevant counterparts. So if you are an experienced player and already have a fairly hefty collection, chances are this video is completely useless for you. And last but not least, just a friendly reminder that if you do enjoy the content you're watching and would like to see more stuff from me, to please consider subscribing to the channel down below. It's completely free and you can unsub at any time. Alright, let's get into it. So if you're new to the game, chances are you've gone online to check out a few deck lists, and notice that just about every single top tier deck features at least one of 2 cards: Cosmic Cyclone or Mystical Space Typhoon. Both these cards have extremely similar effects. Their entire purpose is to target one spell or trap card and remove it from the field. Now the reason these cards are so necessary when creating decks at the moment is nearly every deck runs some kind of disruption back row, whether it be Book of Moon, Karma Cup, Treacherous Trap Hole, etc. And if you don't have a way to remove them, it can be very tricky to try and play the game through their disruptive effects. But sadly, both Cosmic Cyclone and Mystical Space Typhoon, along with their typical substitutes, are all really high rarity box cards, so it can be kind of hard to obtain them when you first start playing the game. But luckily for you, our little shady friend the card trader has a solution. Spiritualism. This card simply returns one spell or trap card to its owner's hand, and it cannot be negated. Now obviously there are some pretty hefty downsides to using this card over your typical back row removal. First of all, it's not a quick play spell, so you cannot set this card and use it during your opponent's turn, nor can you use it during the battle phase to respond to your opponent's stuff. Also, it only returns the card to hand, it doesn't remove it forever. Your opponent can just reset their back row during their turn, but hopefully by that point you would have either already won the game, or at least have a decent board set up to combat whatever your opponent plans to do. This card, although not as strong, still fulfills the same purpose as its ultra rare counterparts. It removes one spell or trap card. So if you're looking for a replacement for that purpose, this card is perfect for you. Next up, I'm going to be showing you guys a replacement for the most notorious spell card currently being played in Duel Links: Book of Moon. This card is currently not only the most popular spell card in the game, but arguably the strongest. This card's effect simply targets one face-up monster on the field and changes it to face-down defense position. Now what makes this card so good is that it's a quick play spell, meaning no matter whose turn it is, you can use this card to deal with your opponent's monsters, whether it be to disrupt a combo during their turn, or for removal of a very powerful monster effect during your turn. Unfortunately, replacing this card's versatility is basically impossible, as there are really no cards quite like it, outside of maybe Offerings to the Doomed. That card has a nasty downside and it's also an SR rarity box card. But what we can do is try and find a replacement for one of the card's primary uses at the moment. You see, in the current meta, especially at the higher ranks, you'll come across quite a few annoying disruption monsters, which in some cases will make your deck completely not playable. For example, if you're playing against a synchro based deck and your opponent summons a Steel Swarm Roach, you can no longer synchro summon, and therefore can no longer play the game until it's removed. If you're playing a graveyard based deck and your opponent summons an Abyss Dweller, you can no longer use your graveyard until it's removed. Or maybe you come across a Shooting Star Dragon, which simply negates any form of destruction effect, and you might not have a way to beat over it. Or you might come across a Bowser, which if not removed will just negate any monster effect you try to activate. Now in most cases, once again, trying to get a hold of a decent card to remove this stuff can be kinda pricey, with most alternatives being decently high rarity. But thankfully, our boy the card trader has us covered. Murmur of the Forest. This card allows you to simply target one face-up monster your opponent controls and change that target to face-down defense position. Then you can return all field spell cards on the field to hand. So similar effect to Book of Moon, but obviously nowhere near as good, as it's not a quick effect, so you can't use this effect to disrupt your opponent during their turn. But after saying all this card's effect is actually just as powerful during your turn as Book of Moon would be. Not only is it an effective way of removing any annoying monster disruption effect or negate, but if your opponent does summon a monster that cannot be destroyed by card effects or just has way too much attack points for you to deal with, you can just flip that shit face down and then destroy it with a card effect or beat over its weaker defense. So if you're struggling to find a way to get around some of these more powerful monsters and effects and don't have access to Book of Moon, remember, this card does exist. And finally, my go-to trap card for new players looking for disruption. A lot of decks in Duel Links don't have a whole lot of inherent disruption effects, especially outside the top tiers, which in today's day and age is a necessity. If you don't have a way to disrupt your opponent nowadays, chances are you're dead as soon as their turn begins. So to cover for this, you have to use powerful generic trap cards to try and disrupt your opponent. And once again, unfortunately for newer players, the selection of trap cards to choose from, although quite vast, is also quite expensive. So once again, you can call upon your good old buddy the card trader to help you out, as he offers Debunk. When a monster effect is activated in hand or graveyard, negate the activation and banish it. Now fair warning, this card is way more situational than your typical disruption, which is also this card's main downside. There are a ton of matchups in the game where this card's effect will be completely useless, as opposed to your typical back row like Karma Cut or Treacherous, which are just always useful no matter what you're up against. But on the flip side, that also means this card can be way stronger than your average back row, as it is a negate, and in the matchups it does have a use, it can be devastating. For example, if you're up against a Fire King player who just destroyed Garunix, normally it would special summon itself from the grave to then wipe your board completely. This trap card just straight up gives the middle finger to Garunix. If you're up against a Synchron deck whose combo typically relies on Converter to resurrect a tuner monster once it's being used for a Synchro summon, this trap card will once again just dab on it. What about a Blue Eyes player who just sent a stone to the grave, or a Thunder Dragon player trying to activate Hawk? Maybe a Resonator player trying to use Wild Wind in the grave? Nope, nope, and nope. This card is a very powerful trap card with the downside of being extremely matchup dependent. But if you find yourself very low in the trap card department of your collection and you need to pick up something that can help with disruption, this card is a great option available to you. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this little guide video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below if there are any other generic card trader staples I missed. And whilst you're down there, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel to see more future content from me. Thank you guys for watching, laters.
Hey, big brother, can I watch SpongeBob?
Shut up, Mokuba. I'm busy flagging YouTube videos to compensate for the fact that I have an extremely small penis.
Oh.